Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Michael MD Ortiz, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
What's up?
Hey,
yeah, what's up? I am Mike or MD Ortiz. Writer extraordinaire. Oh my goodness. Creative, all those fun, pompous sounding things.
You are a filmmaker. You have designed maps for your world, so you are a cartographer.
See, I just get labels thrown at me, and I just have to grin and bear them. It's my cross.
But are you a member of SAG, of the Screen Actors Guild?
Absolutely not.
Films?
No. SAG is
okay.
SAG is an interesting animal.
It just sounds officious when you could say, as a member of SAG-AFTRA. I have no idea what it means, but whatever. It sounds cool. All right. So the next part of the introduction, dear listeners, how we first found them. So this is a true story. We haven't told you this before, but we're going to finally, we feel like it's time. Nick and I, we talked about this in the pre-show. So MD was actually sleeping in the back alley behind the Blasters and Blades podcast studio. And we kind of felt sorry for him. So Stabby sort of lured him in with food until we could adopt him. Or wait, shit. Was that your dog, Nick? I can't remember which one.
No, it was Stabby. It was French onion soup and a baguette. And he was starving and it was cold outside and the soup was warm.
Who can say no to French onion soup and a baguette?
I know, right?
Was it Gruyere on top? What was it?
When you eat a baguette, do you have to wear a beret and talk like this? Oui.
Croissant.
Yeah, it was even on the baguettes. There was cheese. It was like a cheese orgy going on there. There was Asiago, which was
wait. You mean for all of that, all I had to do was sleep in the back alley for a day and Stabby would have fed me too? Crap, I missed out.
Oh my God. Like you and the coyotes. She feeds all of them. These feral dog-ass bastards coming over here wanting to eat my chickens are like...
There's hey, Coyote, man. Coyote, JR, Coyote.
Yeah. and then Michael right there, just like, hey, man, I heard you guys were having French onion. Is it cool? It's like, and she's such a bleeding heart. She's like, oh, I want all the puppies to be fed.
Look, a classy homeless man, right? Like showing up being like, excuse me.
Had a dog collar on. Each of you had your own name on it, so we knew what to call you. It was endearing.
And he drank his hot beverage with his pinky up like a civilized human being.
That's right. That's what we got to do.
All right. So
we sleep amongst the beasts, but we are not one of them.
You should put that in a book.
Put a napkin on your collar there, so it didn't get on your fur. It was very lovely.
That totally needs to go in your next Dawnward novel.
That'd be a pretty good line.
I've actually read the next one that's coming out, and because I beta read it way too long ago, and then he got sidetracked with this project we're about to talk about. But it's a banger. It's a good one. So
we'll get there.
All right. And when you do the map for that book, you need to have there be monsters when you show the water. It's just too perfect for that novel.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. So we're going to move on to the religion questions tailored to the topic. So, Escape from New York, Mad Max, or Blade Runner?
Is this encompassing the whole franchise of these items?
Dealer's
just
choice.
The first movie?
Well, the next question has the other Escape movie, so just the first one in this instance.
I'm going to go with Blade Runner. I love the original Mad Max a lot. I think I love it more than most people do. I don't know why. I just think it's great. Escape from New York is fantastic, but Blade Runner is just so fucking cool. I remember probably one of the first times I ever saw it. It's just that earlier scene where they're talking to Rachel and she's doing the Voight Kampf and she's smoking. And I don't remember how old I was, I think, but I just remember being like, why is smoking so cool?
And the hairstyle she was wearing too. It's that became a benchmark of things I looked for in a woman growing up in a world that doesn't do that hairstyle anymore.
Emotional damage, normal things you look for.
Emotional damage.
But yeah,
that's one of the best one-liner memes, soundboard. Everybody uses it.
Yep. Plus, Blade Runner has the Tears in the Rain monologue, which is Just
oh god, that is
so
one
good.
of the best monologues in cinema.
So good, yeah. And it
he's
wasn't
in
even
the
in the
rain
script.
while it's happening. Yeah, God, I love that movie so much. I'm gonna pick something different though.
All right, Nick, what are you picking?
Where am I just okay? So I know it's Blade Runner and Mad Max. What was the other one?
It was Blade Runner, Mad Max, and Escape from New York.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You want me to choose against Carpenter? Oh, that's a tough one, man. I'm going to go super secret option D, all three. I'm going to go with all the above. I have to, man, because Carpenter is awesome. He did score. You're
just the wishy-washy high school girl then that's wearing all
No,
the
I'm
bracelets.
not. I'm definitely not that pick dude. You don't want to argue any of these franchises with me. Because they all have they're completely different, even though they're all dystopian future stuff.
Sure.
They all have their merits and they all have their cons and all that stuff.
Oh, they all have their different tone as well.
Oh yeah, Carpenter's tone compared to whoever directed original Mad Max. It's not
George Miller. Yeah.
George did the original. Okay.
Yep.
I thought he was good for some reason. George Miller's tone is completely different because it's also kind of
Australian,
optimistic, and Australian. Yeah, it makes me want to have a shrimp on the Barbie when I watch it. And you got Blade Runner. Blade Runner was this really cool cyberpunk before cyberpunk was a thing.
Yeah.
So and you had the tone, the neon lights. It was constantly fucking raining.
Yep.
Very noir. Harrison Ford. Yeah, it was very noir. It was really awesome. It's one of those movies that is so bright that you kind of wish that it was in black and white, like a noir film, like The Maltese Falcon or Casablanca, because it fits that tone. All of those movies are great in their own respects. If I had to pick one, gun to my head, it's Blade Runner.
I'm going for Escape from New York just because it's got that little bit of the campiness that I dig in a movie. I like the B campy movies, although I don't think it was intended to be a campy B movie when they made it.
And who doesn't like Isaac Hayes,
But speaking of the shrimp on the Barbie, have you seen the latest Insider Edition report? Because it's a Kickstarter, those are always recorded really close to air dates. So this actually aired Sunday the 16th. Apparently, a lot of restaurants are getting in trouble because they're claiming it's locally caught shrimp and they're getting it from shrimp-raised farms in Asia. They're not actually getting fresh fish like they tell you.
That is definitely not locally caught.
No, not if they're shipping it over. So it's just one of those things where it's like, truth in advertising matters. Like when we say we're going to blow crap up in our books and in our novels and in our comics, we mean it, dang it. We deliver what we promise.
Yes,
Is it too much to expect that from our chefs? Although the really cool thing was they interviewed this guy on the Inside Edition report from Louisiana, from Baton Rouge, who's running a thing, and he's just going on with a thick Creole accent about how it's a crime against humanity to not use locally sourced shrimp because they're so much better in their neck of the woods than everywhere else because Louisiana's just better. And I'm like, it's the Creoles I know.
Oh my God, but yeah, Gulf shrimp is pretty good though. I ain't gonna lie, but.
All right. So before we get back to the food cast, because you can tell I'm doing the diet thing. So Waterworld, Escape from LA, or Judge Dredd?
I mean, so it depends on the franchise, but if we're going with this, it's going to be Dredd, and not the Stallone one from the 90s. It's going to be Dredd from, I think it was 2012.
Yeah,
that was a good
Carl
one too.
Urban.
Yeah, Carl Urban and Lena Headey, or Headey, whatever her name is. I was stupid excited for that movie. Dragged my friend to see it. We actually saw it in 3D.
Yep.
And it was one of the only movies I've ever seen in my life that I was like, I'm really glad I saw this in 3D because it was an experience in 3D. I love that movie. Waterworld will always have a special place in my heart because it was like that ginormous, stupid action movie that came out right at that time where it was just this perfect era where it came out. It's not a great movie. It's got some fun stuff. I mean, the Smokers and Jack Black, and I love Dennis Hopper just being his crazy self, but yeah. An Escape from LA is bad.
That's a whole show on its own, dude.
I was like, it's bad.
That is a whole other episode, yeah.
100% gonna be 2012's Dredd.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those comics to begin with, so that's always a part that I'm just excited for.
What about you, Nick?
It's going to be Dredd, 2012. Carl Urban did a fantastic job. It was true to the character. Like, Dredd never takes his helmet off.
Still waiting for that show.
Oh, yeah. Mega City 1. I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to see it. Maybe we will.
Oh,
I don't know.
man.
But,
Yeah.
you know, Stallone showed his face. You don't do that when you're Dredd. Dredd never showed his face in the comics, and he's been doing that shit since the 70s, and he's never showed his face. The Dredd 2012 had a lot of potential for like future iterations with like Judge Death.
Yeah, they said the
Stuff like
sequel was
that.
supposed to be Judge Death, and I was hella excited for that.
Oh, dude, yeah. When I read that, and shit, I don't even know what I read it in. Probably film zine, online, whatever.
Yeah,
Because like you don't have Wizard anymore, unfortunately.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just definitely Judge Dredd. It was a great movie. It was ultra violent, like the comic book. It was within tone of the comic book. It's up there with Watchmen as one of the closest things you can get to a perfect cinematic transition from comic to page or comic to film.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I'm gonna have the unpopular opinion that I thought Waterworld was an excellent movie. You loved the hell out of it, but
I don't disagree. But you got to think about the other two contenders you're throwing it up against.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I know a lot of people pan that movie as crap, but I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I think you're
No,
allowed to
dude,
enjoy it. It's a fun movie.
It
But,
is a
for me,
super
it's
fun.
Judge Dredd, but I found Judge Dredd through Stallone's version, and Stallone, him as Demolition Man, and then him as Judge Dredd were like, it was the trifecta of an era. So I like the Stallone version. I've seen the other one, but and I've never read the comics, but I like the Judge Dredd Stallone did because he's such a flat affect when it comes to his acting that it works so perfectly.
Oh, and Rob Schneider just giving him shit.
Oh my gosh!
In that movie was hilarious. Like, Mr. I am the law, and he's like trying to do the lip troll thing.
Yeah.
And then says Judge Dredd like Rob Schneider.
Wait,
I kind of want Rob Schneider to be in the.
Rob Schneider did something after this. I can't remember what it was.
I know that man's in a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
especially in that
the
era.
hardest working dude in Hollywood, man.
Anyway, by the time I look it up, we would have moved on. I know he was in Grown Ups, which is a hilarious movie,
and 2, which is also hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, and Benchwarmers, if we're going for classics.
Was the animal one?
He was in the movie. It's literally titled The Animal, and he was in the Mr. Deeds as well as Hot Chicks, which is hilarious.
I think he's friends with Adam Sandler, so
yeah, just like anybody else. Like that's why we got Grandma's Boy. Like everybody that's friends with Adam Sandler gets a movie.
Gets a
Grandma's
paycheck.
Boy is hilarious. It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, I know the one I was thinking about. He was in Unnecessary Roughness was the other one I liked, and Down Periscope.
Oh, Down Periscope. Yeah, classic.
That is a classic movie.
Kelsey Grammer.
Except the problem with that movie is it's supposedly set against Norfolk, and I'm sorry, we have no mountains that close to the shore. It was filmed in California.
You got to suspend disbelief, man. That's what makes Hollywood.
And welcome aboard, tattooed on his penis.
How long was it?
All right. I bet you're great at movie trivia sessions, aren't you, Ortiz?
Oh, 100%.
You and Nick always popping out the one-liners from any movie you mention.
No,
like just
we don't play against each other. We team up and we dominate. That's what we do.
All right. One more for the road. So 28 Days Later, Train to Busan, or Night of the Living Dead.
Oh.
I mean, so Night of the Living Dead is obviously super classic. The original Romero one. Even the remake's pretty friggin' good. Train to Busan, very good. It's going to be 28 Days Later for me, though. The first time I ever saw that movie, it just like, I was in college. It sounds so weird to say this, but I like kind of started entering the zombie genre. Like I hadn't really super done a lot with like in terms of watching, and I watched it and it blew me away. I think the only part that I still get annoyed at with that movie is I hated how every single zombie or post-apocalyptic movie I ever saw, anytime the characters encountered the military, they were always the bad guys. I was always like, can't they Can't it be good for once? Couldn't we have, maybe just a little bit of a different story? Nope.
It's low-hanging fruit when it comes to that.
Did you watch the 28 Weeks Later, the sequel?
I did. Yeah. It's not as good, but there's elements in that movie that I adore. Like the friggin' night vision scope scene is fantastic, and the part where the chopper blades start hacking them apart, and like,
that was so cool.
There's some really.
But not the first time we saw that. We saw that in Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
We really ought to make that 28 days and 28 weeks later a pair for a Stabby movie review.
So, and 28 years looks really good from that trailer.
Yeah.
You think they're actually going to come out with it? I've seen way too many trailers where movies never came.
No, it's done. It's in the can.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's in
post-production. It's Alex Garland directed it, or he wrote it. I think he directed it. Yeah, it looks
summer release, right?
Yeah, it looks super creepy.
Oh, the trailer.
It's a good trailer.
The trailer triggered me because I am a graduate of the United States Army Sears School, and that song they play in the trailer is what they used to use to torture us. Boots, 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 marching down and up again. And I started shivering watching a fucking movie trailer.
It's
like, why am I having an emotional response here? I'm about to cry because I'm about to get my ass whooped, because that's what they would play before you got your ass whooped.
It's a very effective trailer. So
okay, so Nick, which ones are you picking?
So it's 28 Days Later,
Train to Busan, or Night of the Dead,
and Train to Busan. I'm going to go Train to Busan.
Me too.
It's Busan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just say it's one of the few movies where, because like I watched this after the head injury, and movies that have subtitles are hard because I often have to pause it to be able to read it because of the head injury. It is one of the few movies where it is worth the hassle.
Yeah, and it's one of the few foreign movie or foreign language films that there's not a whole lot of dialogue. You know what I mean? There's a lot of action going on. You can tell what's going on through the action of the scene and through the interaction of the characters. I do like foreign language films. I don't mind subtitles, but yeah, it is a chore because you have to read and then look at the screen and see what's going on and see if it fits because you don't speak that language. Train to Busan was just very intense. It was very primal. It was very visceral. And a lot of the cinematography, and that ending is a goddamn gut punch. And I don't know when this is airing, but if it's anywhere after our talk about The Mist, I do like a good movie with a gut punch at the end, where everything looks like it. Oh yeah, me too. I'm a huge fan.
The Mist is already out, and this is airing tomorrow. So
okay, yeah. So if you've seen The Mist, you can tell that why I love Train to Busan for similar reasons. That it's all hopeful, and you're like, oh my god, they're gonna make it, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, my abs are tightening right now. I have an 8-pack underneath the fat. But anyway, yeah, okay. Train to Busan, man. Like I talk about that movie forever. We could do a show on that one. I love that movie so much.
Sure. So Ortiz, what is your favorite start point for? Because I can write impetus, but I don't pronounce it very well. It's one of the things when you read a lot, you don't always know how things are pronounced, but you know how to spell them because you read. But what's your favorite origin point for post-apoc fiction?
Post-apoc fiction. Ooh. Oh, that's. I mean, I think like a Mega Man's a good classic one. Honestly, it kind of depends on the age of the reader. I think that we did emerge from an age of a lot of post-apocalyptic YA, which to me is actually a really good place for someone who is a younger reader getting into things to really enter that genre and kind of explore it more from there. So I give kudos to things like The Maze Runner and The Hunger Games and that sort of thing. Like, I'm not going to dismiss that. That's a great place for young people to kind of experience a new avenue.
And they're really good. They're really well written.
So, I mean, obviously amongst them, there's crap, but like that's true with every genre. So yeah, it's going to depend on the age of the reader for sure. I kind of came out of a different age where when I was 7, I told my mother I didn't need to learn how to read because I had television. So my mother promptly took away television and never gave it back to me.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a mom
thing. You overplayed your cards, man.
Well, I thought I had a perfect strategy. I was
you thought you had the royal flush going on right there. That blew up in your face.
She used the Uno reverse.
But yeah, so when I got older, by the time things like Harry Potter were coming into fruition, like everyone was reading Harry Potter, I was reading Tom Clancy, so I was like, well, I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to read this book about a boy wizard. But again, just because I didn't.
I want to read about defected Russian submariners bringing out submarines.
Yeah. Oh, I loved The Hunt for Red October, the movie. So why not?
Oh, such a good book.
But yeah. So I think it's going to depend on the age of the person. I personally like a lot of dystopian stuff. I love 1984. I loved it when I read it in high school. My mother was alarmed because of how much I enjoyed that book. Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451.
Oh God. All my favorites.
So like for me, that was more of my post-apoc, we'll call it post-apoc entry, was more of the raw dystopian, like famous ones. And I think that's because a lot of times with post-apoc, we focus too much visually on like everywhere's a crater and I eat canned rats and down the hall is the guy that wants to eat me. Which is definitely like I love that genre of film. But when it comes to novels, there's just as many where there's still a full-on proper society that just doesn't remember or know what the proper, healthy world used to look like because of how everything is now.
Well, dystopian doesn't have to be post-apocalyptic. So
but again, a lot of them,
it's a Venn diagram where they overlap a lot, but they're not.
Yeah, because a lot of them also need to have an inciting incident that leads to the dystopia, and usually that there's a virus or a bomb or a war or something. It's pretty rare where we have a dystopian story and it's just like one day everyone woke up and decided, hey, we're going to make a totalitarian government.
Yeah,
that's what makes it dystopian right there. Is
the cool thing about post-apoc is you could even have. The cool thing about dystopian is you could even have first world fantasy novels like Shannara Chronicles.
Yeah,
it's a post-apocalyptic world in the future of Earth.
Which
I didn't realize at first until I watched the one season TV show I wanted more of because I've read the books, but I also enjoyed the show. And when they're going through the fields, you actually see an aircraft carrier. Laying on its side, and when they go in the school building, it was very obvious. And I'm like, "Crap!" I read that as a kid, and I read the ruins, but it didn't clue into me that it was like post-modern world ruins. So there's so much room for the post-apoc genre to go just about anywhere you want it to.
Sure,
but
as a kid,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say as a kid, I loved the Tripod trilogy. If anyone ever read that,
no.
Oh, okay. It's like an alien post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
Where like aliens invaded. Yes, Nick, Equilibrium is a beautiful movie. I did a paper on it in college. But yeah, it's like aliens that took over the planet and subjugated humans, but we don't know that they're bad. And like when you become an adult, you basically like get to meet them. And it's like a big deal until the main characters are all kids that are going to go meet them are told, no, basically it's where they scramble your brain and take over your mind. So they like run away, and the aliens are like 1950s kind of tripod mech things. But I mean, I recommend it. I thought it was cool. So,
okay. I generally like World War III kind of as a precept for it because you see what the devastation the first two world wars wrought, and you don't even have to show the war. You can even have it far enough out that no one remembers what started it, but it's a believable, thing that destroys enough of infrastructure in society without leaving nothing.
Sure.
So it's kind of fun. And I grew up on the East Coast under the shadow of like in the Cold War with, Russia's going to bomb us. And like, we didn't have get under your desk drills because as my teacher told me in elementary school, well, if that starts, don't worry about it. You won't feel a thing because it'll be over before you know what was happening.
Yeah.
Because the Hampton Roads area is just so many bases. We were a target.
Which is funny because like if Russia's going to launch ICBMs, it's not hitting the East Coast first. It's hitting the West Coast.
Okay, in my elementary school teacher mind, and in what I was told, that was not the case because there were so many high-value targets near us that we just didn't need to worry about it. It was supposed to be fright or like stress, like we don't need to worry about that. But it's just like maybe you should.
Why would I hit the Eastern Fleet when I can hit the Pacific Fleet? It's a lot closer. It just doesn't make sense for
the whole concept that we had a generation of kids raised with like, yeah, this is what you do in case World War III.
No, I get it. Our elders, for the most part, on certain things, were morons. they're all geared in onto the fear machine, and just like that doesn't even make sense. Like if I was a kid on the East Coast growing up, they're like, the Russians are going to hit us. I'm like, I don't think so. It's probably going to be fine. Like California's going to get wiped out, but whatever.
All I know is Dad said a lot. Loose lips sink ships. Do you want the Ruskies to hear? We heard that a lot. And Kami was
I'm on the East Coast, Dad. No, they're not going to hear shit.
And Kami was the worst insult you could give somebody. Like there was a step like you had insults, mama jokes, call them a Kami in the order of severity.
Yeah, that was almost personal when they called me a Kami.
You'd almost rather they just talk about your mom.
You'd have called me a cousin lover, and that would have less impact than calling me a Kami in the 80s and 90s. It's like, oh, cousin effer? Like, okay, yeah, your mom's in that group, whatever. But you call me a Kami, like that is gloves off, tarps
and you
off.
can see like the generation of the authors, because like when I write Bad Guys in Space, I had the People's Republic of Proxima Centauri, so I could have space commies. Like
why not?
Whereas like half of the alien races that they fight in science fiction are like stand-in for the commies, right? If you look at the 80s and 90s, such a great time to inspire fiction. But anyway, we digress. So Nick, what is your favorite starting point for post-apoc fiction?
Oh, geez. All right, so let's go into the Wayback Machine. When I first read I Am Legend, the little novella there that became a movie later on, to which I was severely disappointed in because none of the stuff that was in the book that made it impactful happened in the movie. It was such a great tale, because at the very end you realize that you're no longer normalcy. You're the villain. You're the bad guy. So
you are legend.
You are legend. And that's what it is, because it ends with him in the jail cell and he's looking out the bars and he sees all these vampiric, humid hybrids that are now the majority calling for his head. And it's just like, and it ends with like, yeah, I am villain. I'm the bad guy. I am legend. And it ends with that. It was probably like my first literary remembrance of like not having a happy ending. It's like you know what his fate was going to be. He was going to be martyred there amongst the masses because he was the bad guy that was going in the homes at night and killing the new norm. While these guys are trying to live their lives, and so it was very dire. It's like it's one of those books, and there's not many of them out there. When you read it at the end of it, you're kind of like depressed. You're like, damn, you're like sunken in yourself, like holy shit, like what? And you try and like evaluate it, like would you have done anything different, knowing what you know, and just like nah, like the sequence of events kind of led us to this conclusion, and I probably would have done the same things. You're just like, holy shit, am I the monster? Do I have a potential to be a monster? Like you do a lot of like self-reflecting shit on certain stories, and I Am Legend is one of them. And I was 12. That's a lot of shit to handle when you're 12.
Yeah, that's some deep.
Which is why I probably have done the things I've done in my life, because I'm like all messed up from a simple little story that wasn't that long.
See this, kids? Don't let your kids read.
Yeah. Responsible adults, don't let your kids read dystopian stuff.
Hang out on TikTok where it's safe.
Yeah, and snort cocaine and do Adderall, whatever. That's not an endorsement. Please don't nerf us.
Oh, you silly thing.
Yes, that's me. That's why I'm on the show.
Okay. So, speaking of, we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. We have evolved since our army days, and now we are proper gentlemen. So, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Oh, me, it's tea.
Do you drink your tea and say things like Earl Grey, hot? And I can't do his accent, but imagine that I did.
I don't know why you do the accents. That's my role.
No. Kind of depends what I need to drink the tea for. If I'm drinking the tea because I'm sick, then it's like a non-caffeinated herbal nonsense crap, or green tea.
Ooh, green tea's nice.
And I like green tea with some honey. Black tea,
Oh yeah.
typically, I'll just drink it straight or occasionally with milk. This is the weirdest thing. If I am in an English country, like either the UK or some former Commonwealth country, I will drink black tea with milk, like consistently.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
It's good. It's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it, but it's like I don't typically do it at home. But as soon as I go over there, they're like, "Oh, would you like some tea?" I'm like, "Yes, with some milk, please." The sugar,
Yeah, it's
no,
definitely
sugar.
the when in Rome adage.
So, but yeah,
No sugar?
no sugar. Yeah.
Honey?
I'm not in my black tea. Typically only in green.
A drop of honey's not bad with a cube of sugar and some milk.
I mean, I will say when I lived in New Zealand, because they have the Manuka honey, and we had a lot of access to that. It's really good, and I would occasionally do that because it's really healthy for you. So
is it?
Yeah, it's supposed to have all these added health properties, if that's real or not, or just a good marketing scheme. But
it tastes good. I don't care if it's a marketing scheme. It tastes amazing.
So yeah, so I would always put like a spoonful of that in my tea. So
yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're like one of those commie heathen types.
No, don't call me commie.
I mean, I don't drink my tea out of the big cistern thing, and I'm just trying to picture like the Russian tea that they always do in the little glasses
with the sand, Turkish tea shit.
Yeah.
So
which is good.
I'm a son of the South. Tea should be drank two ways. One, ice cold with enough sugar to keep the spoon standing upright. Sweet tea, table wine as God intended, or in the harbor.
Oh, God. You got to quit being such a damn fundamentalist, man. Let it go. It's been almost 300 fucking years. We beat them. They're an ally. We talk shit to them. It's cool. We're good now.
All right. So since we've mentioned that this is an Army run podcast, in your bio, well, I don't know if it's in your bio because I haven't read it, but it should be. But we know that you served in the U.S. Army. So do you think your time in uniform affects the way you tell stories as a creator of content across all mediums?
I think anyone's background in you know what I mean, whatever they did personally is going to affect them to some degree. Whether that's how you kind of interpret elements like combat, which is people are going to say is like a very generic thing, or just weapons handling or whatever. I think for me, one of the things though is the fact of how often or how you tackle kind of quieter moments. Because I think there's a lot of assumption in the general public that when you're serving, when you're doing something like that, you're like, yeah, we're just climbing the hills and stabbing bayonets and whatever. In reality, you're like, remember that time we were sitting there for 4 hours and we made up a game by throwing pebbles at a cup? Yeah. And then we talked about who could beat up who in a fight, Bert or Ernie from Sesame Street. And then we got really aggressive about it because you didn't agree.
So who wins, Bert or Ernie?
Obviously, it's going to be Ernie. See, Ernie is shorter. He's got that lower center of gravity.
But Bernie's got the reach, man.
But that's the thing, though, right? So you think he's going, but he's like up here, and Ernie's going in, and he's just going.
Yeah, but you could do that little motion where the tall person puts their hand on the forehead of the little person, and they're just swinging air.
I mean, it really comes down to who do you think is the big spoon?
Well, that's a good question.
But no, again, so there's a lot of that like character moment stuff. There's a lot of that.
Ernie's definitely a little bit chunkier.
That great downtime, that almost inane conversation that comes out between people, which is sometimes some of just the most fun stuff to experience and write. Just really stupid arguments that come up where, here's a great one that's always stuck in my brain. Is it chocolate chip cookie dough or is it chocolate chip cookie dough?
Ooh.
Oh, with a comma.
What is the meaning of that title when you look at that ice cream?
I don't know. Punctuation's important.
Is it chocolate chip ice cream with cookie dough, or is it vanilla ice cream with chocolate chip cookie dough in it?
Or it's just madness and it's all thrown together. And
both are a thing, though.
But again, like the amount of like the things that lead to arguments or heated discussions or like just that are burned into that live up here rent free.
I don't know. I'm sorry. If I saw an ice cream packaging and it has a comma in there, I'm gonna think it's hoity-toity and then kiss my ass. I mean,
but they're not going to put a comma in there because why would they do that?
Shit. Good point.
So
I've
there's
never
no
seen
comma. So your brain is if you really
It's
think
just
about it, if you're holding it in your hand, what is this?
Cookie dough and like, oh my god, I don't even know what to do. It's gonna be good though. Whatever it is, it's gonna be sugar.
You want to know the weird thing I saw? Speaking of ice cream, I was at the grocery store the other day. They had peanut butter and jelly flavored ice cream, and I'm like, that stuff just don't stand. No, it's just.
Oh, I would have tried that. You didn't try it?
It's worth a try. It depends.
That's worth a go.
Jelly
that is
flavored
worth
ice
a go.
cream, or is it peanut?
I don't know. I'm just not picturing
cream?
like a peanut butter and jelly ice cream flavor working for me.
Oh, I beg to differ.
Again, what's the base flavor?
Yeah, like what am I getting hints of, and what's the base flavor? Like Ortiz is saying, like is it gonna be peanut butter with hints of jelly?
Yeah, like is it like a peanut butter ice cream with like a fruit ribbon through it or something? Or is it like a fruit ice cream with like a peanut butter swirl?
So welcome to the Fat Ass Cast, where we talk about food.
JR, are you hungry? Do you need a DoorDash right now? Yeah, that's what
I need an
edible. Do you have an edible?
He has been talking a lot about French onion soup.
You're thinking about like fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches.
No, so
and shit.
I just realized that, because when you eat out, or if you're, because between kids' appointments, right? Like sometimes you just gotta grab food on the go. And I realized half the crap I was eating, I was getting the calories wrong. So I'm like officially restarting my diet today now that I know where I was getting the calories wrong, so I can just fix it going forward. And of course, that means once I'm like, no, I can't have the good stuff anymore. I got to get myself back because I got to be a recovering fatty, not a fatty.
You got to get a scale, man. You got to get a food scale.
I have one, but that doesn't work when you're out in public as easily.
Oh no, those calories don't count. Everybody knows that.
Well, that's why I didn't lose any extra weight. I've been holding strong, so I need to get it fixed. And so now that I'm like, okay, I'm back on the diet, suddenly all the food that I can't eat right now is like popping into my head like an overload. My brain's like, you don't want to give up being a fatty. Being fat feels good. Food tastes good. But lift plates, get dates. Am I right? So
yeah, you can do both. Just saying.
I'm learning. I'm cooking my own food. So one of the things I've learned, and then we'll move on to actually talk about what brought us here, is if you cook the food yourself and you don't eat it out, you generally get like a third of the calories for whatever reason. It's all the additives and crap.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's also a reason why restaurant food always tastes better. You know what I mean? If you go to any diner and order scrambled eggs, they're going to taste way better than the scrambled eggs you probably made the day before.
I'm just saying, Waffle House at 3 a.m.
Waffle House at any time of the day.
Or Huddle House if you're in the right location. Although when I was in the South, deep South in South Carolina, the Huddle Houses were people who were too drunk to go into the Waffle House, so the Waffle House wouldn't serve them. So then they went to the Huddle House.
Oh.
Huddle Houses are mostly on military installations in the South. So if you play your cards right, you can get Waffle House and Huddle House in the same night.
So the Huddle Houses here were like the ones that were rundown versions of the Waffle House, although. And not too far from my mom's house, there's a Huddle House. It's like high gourmet vibe because it's a brand new restaurant. So I think it's just, who owns the franchise and how long they've been open.
Well, let's be honest. You're not in the South unless you're near Shoney's. So
the Shoney's near us shut down. The food inspection closed them down.
That's what made it so good.
That was just insulation. It's like padding.
Disintegrating and cockroaches? I mean, come on.
Right? I mean, who doesn't?
That's a meal, man.
When you create your stories, do you draw on people you served with?
I think I mean that happens for sure. Like, and I'll even draw on. It'll kind of be amalgams between people I know now or people back then, or like it just happens. There's almost
they're
like
ready-made characters.
Yeah, and it's also again like the more time kind of separates between the two things, the more they kind of become almost archetypes in your brain. Like they sometimes lose facets of their real person, or you never really knew the real person on some of them. So you sort of invent that, but you're like, this is the core that stuck with me about them.
I've always found it easier to take people that I know that fit into those archetypes that I can like merge with other archetypes because they kind of like teeter that line. And it makes for a very interesting character. It's like, well, I don't have a character that's definitively X, and I don't have a character that's definitively Y. I got these amalgamations of these two. And then you think about it like, oh, wait, I served with this dude. And then when I was in the Army going through some horrific shit, and then I worked in an office for 6 months with this dude, whose personality would work really well with this dude. I'm going to take X and Y, I'm going to make them A and B, and I'm going to put them together in a blender, and it works. And it gives you some really, really good stuff going on there. I'm sure it's the same that you've done.
Yeah, I think names are one of those things that will also kind of steal and stick in a back pocket, and then one day you're like, "Hey, why is your character named Jane?" Well,
then the trick is to figure out, is this the person as you remembered them from your own memories, or the person as filtered through other people's memories? They somehow get mixed up with your own memories, and somewhere in there is the truth that you have to suss out.
Well, as I said, like the further you get away from it, the less it is what was reality. Because again, our brains kind of pick and choose what we remember and what we recall, and then we kind of fill in the gaps. So unless you're literally like in that moment or shortly after that moment going, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to create a character, and you know what, Gomez, I'm going to definitely base something on him because that was, it's just so perfect. Things kind of just sort of flit through the ether until they settle.
Yeah. So obviously, like you've mentioned, how the way you tell stories is affected by your time in uniform. Does it affect post-Army service the way you read or view or consume fiction?
I mean, the number one thing that my wife complains about is usually when I go, "Oh yeah, that doesn't exist," or like, so again, it's so stupid, but it's something where it's like, the scene is 1998, and a bunch of guys in digital camo run out. And you're like, that didn't exist. Those helmets were from 2001. Like that's an EOTech.
They're wearing an ATH in 1996. That wasn't a thing.
Like that kind of stuff. And she's like, "Shut up! Like you just watched the thing." And I was like, "I know, but like,
you want to lose your mind?
It bothers me.
Lose your mind. Watch a show called what was it called? It's got Dennis Leary in it. I'm trying to remember it. It's something.
Oh, is that new one or whatever?
Going Dutch.
Yeah.
You want to lose your mind as someone who served in the military. It's funny, but it took me like 3 episodes to like quit losing my mind over the uniforms and all that shit. Because like Stabby gets mad at me because I do the same thing. I'm like, that didn't exist. Like watching Black Hawk Down, which is one of my favorite movies, and he's got like an aim point. He's got a CCO on an M14. Well, in 1993, that wasn't a thing. That didn't happen. Yeah. Like, come on. She's like, "Nick, just shut up and enjoy the movie." I can't, because this is really bugging me for some really weird reason, because the Army gave me fucking obsessive compulsive disorder.
Right, yeah.
Do you ever say things like, "This is my trigger," or this is my safety, and like, wiggle your finger at people?
Every chance I get, because that's one of the coolest lines in cinema.
I will say I do have we'll call it a tick. My wife calls it my tail wag, where she can tell if I'm thinking about, like if I'm super fixated on something that's kind of...
She can see it in your face?
Exciting. No, I literally do this.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So
that would be a tail wag.
I'll literally be sitting there doing that, and she's like, "What's up, Triggs?" Because she calls it, it's the trigger. So...
right. Well, this episode is going to be sponsored by your Kickstarter.
PTSD.
So we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and I'm going to play the video that leads into your Kickstarter's website, which I shamelessly screen grabbed. Don't come after me for the rights, okay, Ortiz?
I suppose it's fine.
Babylon, a shining oasis of innovation amidst the barren expanse of the Western Reach. The crown jewel of commerce, it stands as a testament to the power of the Omnicore. A sprawling labyrinth of gleaming high-rises, corporate fortresses, vast depots and sprawling factory yards. Here, people from all corners of the continent converge, driven by the thirst for wealth and power, seeking fortune in boardrooms, shipping docks, or the ruthless streets. In Babylon, only the sharpest minds, the most persuasive tongues, or the quickest draws can carve a path to success. It is a city where ambition burns bright and countless lives are sacrificed in the shadow of greed. But it's also a great place to visit. Breeze Issue 1 is an exciting 40-page, independently created comic set in a thrilling post-apocalyptic cyberpunk world. Follow a band of quirky freelancers as they join forces to pull off the ultimate heist against a powerful megacorporation. For the past 10 years, our passionate team has been building the world of Dawnward through short films and fiction. And now, we're bringing that universe to life in comic book form. Breeze marks the next chapter of this epic adventure, and we want you to be a part of it. By supporting our Kickstarter, you'll gain exclusive access to the comic, plus a bunch of cool perks, all while helping us deliver a fun, sarcastic, and action-packed cyberpunk story. So log on, donate, and join the adventure.
All right, Nick was bobbing his head along with the music.
Good. Mission accomplished.
And I'm not going to lie, I laughed at that scream at the end.
That Wilhelm? Yeah, hell yeah.
The Wilhelm scream, yeah.
Is that why is it called? I've never heard that word before.
Because it was used in the early days of cinema, and it was a scream used in like when we started going from silent film era to actual what they call talkies.
Right.
It was used. It was a German film. Can't remember which. Come back to me. I've been drinking. But that scream was based on the actor who did the scream as he fell over something, and it's called the Wilhelm scream, and it's been used
in everything.
Yeah, it's part of the cinematic zeitgeist. It was used in Star Wars. It's been used in every major motion
Lord of the Rings
action film. Lord of the Rings, where anybody takes a deep dive.
Yeah.
So here's my one bit of film trivia is the anti-piracy stuff, the little music that goes with that when they start a VHS. They paid him for a one-time use of it at a film festival for this movie, and then they just kept using it when the distribution came out, and they pirated his song and didn't pay him for his song about not pirating their movies. They pirated his song for it, and he ended up suing them on principle and winning like a decent amount of money.
Hell yeah.
How the turntables have...
It's just the irony of it, you know what I mean? Like,
that's pretty ridiculous.
That's funny though. Government.
I heard about that one from the new somebody's redoing the Now You Know the Rest of the Story Paul Harvey show. Like there's some modern interpretations of it, and it was one of their episodes. I want to say Mike Rowe is doing it, but I could be wrong.
That sounds like Mike Rowe.
Yeah, he does lots of cool stuff. But anyway, all right. So first, before we dig in, the Dawnward Universe as presented in this comic. What would you rate it on like a PG family friendly kind of scale so the readers know like if their kids could read it kind of thing?
I mean, if we're gonna slap this comic with a rating, we'll probably lean it closer to the tail end of PG-13, more like a 16 plus sort of rating. So when we kind of discussed doing a comic, I kind of was like, you know what should we go for in terms of rating? And the consensus was, well, Cyberpunk in general is inherently a lot more gritty, grounded, kind of nihilistic and violent. So it doesn't make as much sense to kind of
like adult reader or young adult.
Yeah. Like it's we didn't want to be like, this is hard. Like this is straight mature. But it's definitely not just a PG-13 sort of comic, if that makes any sense.
No, it has that vibe of like Berserker. If you ever read that book.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves. It's akin to that as far as tone.
So can you give us like the Reader's Digest version of the story this comic tells?
Sure. So we are following this group of, we call them freelancers, but mercenaries or whatever, that come together because one of them has proposed what they deem is this perfect heist to rob a data vault, which is kind of like we'll call it a corporate recycling bin for this mega corporation. It's a place where they throw things that they don't want to necessarily lose right away, but they want gone. The I was gonna say not what's between heaven and hell. And why am I blanking on that name?
Purgatory.
It's like the purgatory for files. And so they hire this hacker, Galley, who's the girl with the cat ears, to basically be like, hey, how fast can you start pulling files off? She's like, pretty fast. I'm like, okay, how fast can you pull files if someone's shooting at you? Well, who's shooting at me? How good are they? And so, they kind of have to work together while at the same time kind of realizing that not all of them are in this for the same reason, and some of them might be more or less than what they're claiming to be.
So are these characters overlapping? I mean, it's the same universe, obviously, but are they any of the characters overlapping with any of the short films or books or novellas?
They are not. We kind of purposely wanted this story to be standalone. We wanted it to be that if you pulled it out of the universe, it still could stand on its own legs, so to speak. This is an easier place for people to kind of enter into story.
Okay.
Set in one city, kind of more streamlined. So that was kind of the goal, was to be a very nice soft entry for people.
Okay. What would you call the art style?
So the art style is, so if you could pull up any of the actual pages. Yeah, so one of the things that we did do was go with a selective color sort of styling, where almost to heighten a kind of sense of noir, where so only things that are either, we'll call it exciting or electronic, are colored. So things like muzzle flashes, blood, signs, cybernetics, cyber optic eyes, all that kind of stuff is colored. Everything else is black and white. And then the other thing we did is that only characters that matter have color on them. Almost like, again, everything else of the world is black and white, except for the character, whatever the reader needs to know or latch onto.
You definitely take the transhumanist thing to a new level.
I mean, that's a big part of Cyberpunk, is like the nature of man and machine, like mixed together. And so, yeah, it's, as I said, like as the story kind of goes on, we learn more about these characters and kind of where they've come from and why they're doing what they're doing. And some of that kind of the transhumanist, the augmentation, whatever you want to call it, definitely ties into their origins, in terms of also like their self-identity. But this is a setting where cyberization is not abnormal. It's not something where it's like, oh my gosh, that guy's got a cyborg arm. It's pretty standard because it's almost like a sense of self-expression. It's a sense of human beings trying to search for superiority amidst like a chaotic world. There's other powers at play over them, and so having some level of cyberization is a way that people can kind of exert some level of authority over themselves, even if they're still a puppet of somebody else and don't realize it.
So, Nick, what do you think of the art? I'm digging that little fine thing on the top, and the quasi-striker.
No, I mean, you used color as almost a character within itself to accentuate what's going on in the story. It's a very interesting thing to do, and I from what I've seen so far, it works very well. It does lend impact where you need it to lend impact, because most comic books are full color.
We had done some full color tests. We that was the plan, was originally to go full color.
You showed us some tests of some full color pages, and it didn't have the same impact as when you did the limited color.
The issue we just kept running into is that everyone kept seeing the black and whites and going, "These are so good."
No, they are solid. You have solid use of negative and positive space here, and I think that's what's going to work well for this book, especially with the limited color, because what you have introduced here, and I don't know if this was planned or just kind of was a happy accident, as Bob Ross says, when you introduce color in a lot of these impactful scenes, it becomes a character within itself, which is good. It adds gravitas to it, and it really draws your eye in to the things that you want to bring your eye into. There was an image that we haven't seen on here that you shared in like private chats between you me and JR, of like a terminal scene, like a control center scene where things were blowing up. And you've tried the limited color and the full color, and we all kind of agreed that the limited color was the way to go. Yeah, these are really good. Like, especially this scene right here, you got these stormtroopers, foot soldiers, and all you see right here as any type of impactful color is the red eyes, red aggression. They're doing exactly, and you have a little bit of like a red haze going around them, which is really cool and very interesting and draws your eye in. It really pulls you into what's going on here, and it really just kind of brings you in as a reader. It's like, oh, this is really important, and I'm really excited to like flip the page and see what happens next. So there's a lot of really cool dynamic things going on here, and you've done that not only through the imagery but with the placement of color here. And then you got like this right here. And not only do I absolutely love the logo type on the top, it's very 80s. I super love that. Even during like the trailer that we played earlier, it was very 80s groovy, it was like it just had that sheen to it.
I mean, definitely.
And then you have
heavily inspired by a lot of 80s material.
And that's cool. Like an 80s cyberpunk thing is like vibes with me hard. I'm like, oh, that's so awesome, because we didn't have that in the 80s. For those that grew up in this shit, it's like, yeah, we had the cool topography and stuff like that. And like Cyberpunk was just kind of becoming its thing, like towards the later part, late 80s, early 90s. And it didn't really start going into its own until the early 2000s. But like to have like an 80s vibe going to a Cyberpunk genre is just like really cool. It like really resonated with me. I'm like, that's awesome. It's like the Matrix, but different. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain. Maybe some of my fellow Gen Xers can chime in the comments. I don't know.
The only thing if I zoom in, it kind of gets blurry because this is a low-res picture from all of these pictures are the publicly sourced available Kickstarter, right? Because I didn't want to show anything because you've showed us stuff that's not public, right? So everything that we're showing today is the stuff that you can see if you go to the Kickstarter website on the show notes. But in the image that's so small, it almost looks like you got a booger hooks on the bang switches. But what did you told us something about that in a side chat. Can you tell the people that can't read that?
Yeah, so you had asked about that. And yeah, it's kind of funny. You can tell what artist worked on what piece by the trigger discipline. So the main artist and myself have worked together on projects for quite a long time, in like me doing lines and stuff for him and all sorts of things, like just basic concepts and things. And he and I, like we always have the trigger discipline, but then we'll call them more proper comic book artists, and that just doesn't mean anything to them. And at the same time, there's also that element where, like, for example, this character here clearly is not some sort of level of professional, so they're kind of a street level sort of thug.
Yeah, which works. Like I get that.
At least her guns aren't held sideways.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, that's just kind of funny to me. Yeah,
I like the alt cover here.
Yeah, so that's our main cover.
So cool.
So yeah,
like you threw a bunch of covers at us, and I was like looking at it, like, hey, which one's good? And I'm like, at first glance, it's like, I'm not seeing the difference, man. What's going on here? And I had to zoom in. And you were talking about the logo type. You were talking about the masthead.
Yep.
So I was looking at the wrong shit entirely, which I felt embarrassed. Because I was looking at the figures, I was looking at that, and I was like, oh, wait, he's talking about the masthead. So then I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's what he's talking about. Okay, I got it. All right. So these are the ones that work better. I get it. They're all good, but like this one had a little bit more impact to it.
Yeah. So this is our...
I was going to ask you about the stretch goals and all of the Kickstarter stuff, and then we'll dive in a little bit to the story behind the comic after we cover that.
No worries. Yeah, so we did kind of a set of stretch goals that we wanted to kind of be aggressive with it, and at the same time try and give people as much kind of content and entry as possible. So I mean, I know he's pushing the limits of what can go in terms of resolution with this. But yeah, so if we hit our main goal, then we're going to produce a set of stickers. So we actually already have the main character, Gally, the hacker girl, has been drawn in like a chibi style. Because everybody seems to love a chibi. So We're going to do a set of stickers,
Yeah,
including
they do. That's the thing.
like that. Some company logos. She's like addicted to an energy drink, so we're going to have that as a sticker. We're going to do a digital source book, so just kind of a nice little like sort of universe Bible or like a city Bible. We've already written like a mini comic. It's like a side story that gives background to one of the characters they encounter. And we're really keen on that. So in fact, I'm doing the panels, the layout for that right now. So hopefully that'll get shown off on the Kickstarter pretty soon. We love our like 80s synth. We love that kind of vibe. So we've brought on an artist that we're going to work with to kind of do a soundtrack for the comic. So hopefully that'll be pretty fun. And then we have myself and then a lot of people in the team have a background in film and television. So we thought it'd be pretty fun to do a motion comic for issue 1, where we bring in voice actors and sound effects and editor and that sort of thing, and and just kind of give it some life in that regard.
If I chip in enough, can I be a voice actor in the motion comic?
Sure, why not? That's a great idea. And then if we do real well, we have it written, we have it kind of ready to go, so to speak. We'll give the people issue 2. So the arc is going to be 4 issues. Issue 1 is basically done. Issue 2 is written and just ready to start getting gone. We just wanted to make sure that issue 1 was printed before we did anything further with it. And then 3 and 4 are planned and outlined. We just need to finish the scripts for them. Ideally, if things go super well, we're going to do 4 issue arcs, so a total of 16 issues. So each little story will be 4 issues, kind of covering 4 adventures, all following our crew as they kind of explore their world themselves and what it means to be human.
I like it.
Okay. So,
and of course, cyborg cats.
So what is the timeline here? Obviously, the Kickstarter runs through this month. So it's going to end mid-April, I believe.
Yep.
So from end of Kickstarter to to shipping out the content, what's your window you're looking like?
So we gave ourselves under the Kickstarter, I think we have it slated for a July delivery, and
that's not too far.
And the only reason for that was because we want to make sure that we give ourselves enough time for kind of like trial and error. I don't want to tell people, it's basically done. We just got to push print, and then we run into some sort of issues, or we need to do like quality control or anything like that. So right. Ideally, we'll have it in our hot little hands in July, and then June. And then by the end of June, we'll start shipping it out.
And I did see on the Kickstarter, but it wasn't
stuff.
Yep.
I did see on the Kickstarter website, but it isn't a graphic I could grab. You do have shipping conversion rates. So a lot of Kickstarters just like, we won't ship overseas. Whereas you gave generic, like if you go overseas, assume an extra X dollar value for your location, which I actually thought was kind of cool. So you opened it up to the international market.
We have a fan base out of New Zealand. We've done actually several Dawnward short films there. So there's like a community of, we'll call it fans over there. So already we have people at what some individuals consider the end of the earth that are very invested. So we're absolutely committed to kind of shipping things around. We also have started exploring translations for the comics. So right now we're considering doing Mandarin, Russian, Spanish, and then possibly Maori, which is like the native language to New Zealand, which is again a language that things don't get translated into very often. So we thought that would kind of be a nice special thing to do.
Okay, so those are the Kickstarter goals. But what is the basic story? Is it just a heist story?
I mean, so it starts as just a heist story, and then, like every good heist, things get complicated. And then before they know it, they have kind of stepped foot into, because as I said, this is a place where a corporation, a mega corporation no less, kind of puts things that they don't want to delete, but they don't really want around. So when you start kind of digging into that sort of place, you might find secrets that no one really wants to see the light of day.
Okay. Yeah, before we start diving into the characters here in your comic, let's talk about the inspiration here for this story. Like, was there like a lot of Italian job, like heist films? Like, what kind of brought in the inspiration for this series?
Well, I think the funniest thing to bring up is the fact that this started as a tabletop role-playing game back in 2011.
Oh, F off! No kidding.
Yeah, really? I was working for a company back then called Games Workshop. Some people might be familiar with it.
I've heard of it once or twice.
Yep. And I ran a store out in California, and when I was done for the day, I'd lock up shop, and me and a group of people would gather around in the closed store, and we'd play this. And so some of the characters are actually derived from people's characters from that time, and some of the story elements as well. Yeah, I mean the story concept kind of came from a lot of different places. Obviously, any good heist gets pulled from some films and stories and stuff like that, but the main cusp of it is really kind of wanting to show, not just like cool stuff and fun action and whatever. That's a big part of why anybody wants to write a story, but I like that concept where, revenge is complicated.
Yeah, so you got some Ocean's 11 going on in here?
Yes. And you going to get revenge, even though you think it's your great catharsis, and it could be, you might love it, doesn't mean it's not going to go terrible for people that are just kind of caught in the crossfire.
It's going to go south.
Yep.
Right. And that makes sense in storytelling. So tell me about the characters in this book and what archetypes they represent that you have in here, or you have
Sure. Yeah. So if you want to go to the normal cover there, JR. There you go. Yep. Zoom in. So yeah. So there's our principal cast, our party, if you will, our crew. So center with the, if you can zoom in anymore, I don't know if you can or not.
It'll pixelate too much if I do.
Okay. So we talked about Gally. She's the hacker. She's young. She's excited. She's here for money and a good time. But she also kind of harbors some serious damage from her past that she's trying to contend with. And so this is, a job like this is not just let's make money. Also in a quiet way, it's kind of like a redemption and proving to herself that she can kind of rise above her kind of past suffering.
Okay.
And then in the center, with the respirator and the glowing eye and the white hair, that's Synth. She's our leader, but she's also the biggest enigma to everyone else. She's gathered everyone together for this job that she has produced all the details for, that she has all the plans for, that she has all the knowledge. They're just here to help her out. And there might be more to her than people think, because this job doesn't give off I want money vibes. This job gives off, this is a personal matter.
Ooh.
Okay.
Plot twist.
Yep. And then on the far right, we have Rosa. Yep. She is the muscle. She's the tank. She's the bruiser. But she also has kind of that heart of gold. So she's a little bit of the team mother. So she's Mama Bear. So, if you mess with the people she cares about, she's going to crunch your face in. She has a whole bunch of augmentations. So, she can basically punch through a wall. She's basically like a cybernetic luchador.
That's one heck of a description.
I mean, that was the big inspiration for it. So she has like I don't want to say it's quite nanotech, but she has like a face shield mask which is it's like a jaguar that snaps in place over her face. And that's like combat mode is engaged.
Okay.
And then on the far left there, next to Galley, we got Baptiste. And he is the cool, calculated gunslinger. He's the man who has a revolver and knows how to spin it real cool and broom that sucker like nobody's business.
There you go.
Cool for the win.
Yep, but he's also a very experienced, mercenary, and he has a personal connection to the bad guys that have been hired to guard this data vault that they're about to go rob.
Can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes.
This guy right here, because it's got to be kind of offset. So I'm like aiming to the right. Is the mercenary?
That's Rosa. That's the luchador.
This guy right here at the far right.
Yep.
Our girl.
That's a girl.
That's a girl. Yep.
Yeah. You can tell by the boobs.
She's just a tank of a woman.
Okay. I'm colorblind, so stuff is blending in. All right. This is
boobs are boobs, JR. They stand out.
I'm just seeing
colorblind or not.
I'm just seeing a purplish
boobs.
blur, or like barely a silhouette of a person.
Of boobs.
I'm not seeing. I can't tell you like what gender that is because it's.
That's what I'm here for, man. I'm your guide dog to show you boobs.
The pistol person is.
That's Synth.
All right, and this is the cat.
He
girl.
also has boobs, JR.
I got that. Thank you. Cat girl over here.
Yep.
Boobs.
And finally, Mr. Cool Pistol guy.
Yep.
No boobs. Dude.
Well, moobs.
Maybe. I don't know how many push-ups he does.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, he's got a revolver. Does he? Yeah. I mean, you can see a few more little.
But I don't see tits.
Page elements on the next to the cover there. Some more black and whites on the pages.
So the majority of the central cast is female.
They are. There's going to be some more characters that'll be introduced as the arc goes on. Two of which are kind of they're antagonists, but
okay. Are aliens a thing? Are we going to incorporate some alien type of?
There is aliens in the world, but they're not going to really have any sort of basis when it comes to this story.
Okay, so it's mostly a humanoid-based story.
Yep.
Aliens exist; they're just not showing up here. I get it. That's totally cool.
So yeah, I mean, if you want to think about species in this, the easiest way to break it down would be humans, modified humans, so people that are, augmented cybernetically, and then people that are so cybernetic, we have to ask the question, are you a person anymore?
So you get into that interesting dilemma of like they're humanoid, but they're humanoid plus. Are they really humans? Are they their own things? Are they also alien? But then you also have aliens involved too, which is really cool. So I don't want to. I'm not trying to get into spoiler territory because there's a whole story arc going on here, and I don't want to do that. This looks cool, and I like what you're setting up here.
Nice, cool, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we just wanted to kind of just have a good time, just tell a fun story, just.
Well, and you can tell that too, even like in the page work, like it's just looks like y'all were having a good time making this.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I'm just jaded, but I think a lot of people sometimes feel like they're looking for, modern media that's just fun escapism. It can have themes, it can have, values or whatever you want to call it, but it's still like, hey, would you like to be entertained?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I go for when I go to the comic shop. Is like, am I going to be entertained? Am I going to have to leave my 9 to 5 for a couple hours as I read this tale, but I don't have to worry about my 9 to 5 dreary bullshit? Do I get to escape into this world and live in the life of these characters?
So, yeah, and so we also really wanted to kind of have an element of sarcasm to it. I feel like maybe that's just part of who I am, or kind of how I see Cyberpunk in general. Just everything from like ads to how characters might interact with one another, or
can you give me an example of that sarcasm that you implemented
in
this book?
One of the ways that we thought would be interesting to kind of share exposition without being boring and dull and causing people to just kind of glaze over was to insert things as like adverts. So you want a little background of the city? Well, here's a fake tourism blotter from the company telling you how amazing the city is. Do you enjoy
Some
long
propaganda?
walks? Yeah, of course. And partake in the greatest, pastime the city has to offer, throwing rocks at those less fortunate than yourself. I feel as though somewhere in the back of my brain forever and ever, when I think of Cyberpunk, RoboCop is just living there, and Paul Verhoeven's like, hey, would you buy that for $1? And I'm like, yes, I would.
Right.
Yes, I would, sir. And like, I remember seeing the commercials in that movie and just loving every freaking minute of him. The car security system that barbecues the guy, and the sunblock that's like to stop, nuclear like microwave sun. And
it carried over into Starship Troopers too, because it's the same
sure,
director.
of course.
You have same propaganda commercials. Like, I'm doing my part,
Yep.
It's awesome.
So I feel like that's just a really important kind of vein and homage to kind of to slot in there and just kind of have, because again, like, I love Blade Runner. Don't get me wrong, it's great. It's a beautiful movie, but Blade Runner is also very somber, very slow, very serious. I think there's maybe 2 jokes in the whole movie. And as much as I enjoy it, it's sometimes you just need a faster pace and a little more popcorn.
I think we're going to get that with this book.
So is there any chance for the characters from these comics get their own novelization when you get around to that?
Well, so one of the things we're doing with the Kickstarter for the comic is anybody above a certain level is actually going to get a novella. So it's going to probably follow, I think right now it looks like the plan is that it's going to follow Rosa and give her a little more spotlight. And so that'll be kind of the start of pulling elements from these stories, these comics, and putting them more into a narrative form. I think we've already for quite a while we've discussed the concept of having Gally appear in a book or getting her own novel. I had pitched an idea ages ago, which is basically a super famous, like, fun, zany internet like child's entertainer, almost like a Barney type character, goes missing, and she takes it upon herself to track them down and figure out the truth of what happened to them. And of course, when it comes to children's entertainment, it can only be great when someone disappears.
This is one of those lines where you say, and I took that personally. Okay, was there anything about this story that we didn't cover? Because I want to make sure I get this out in time to pimp the Kickstarter, that you think we really need to know? And about the comics itself?
I don't think so. I think we've touched upon it pretty well. As it says in the video, we're going for 40 pages for the first issue, which is a pretty decent length. We're trying to have a good time ourselves, trying to make sure the reader has a good time, using this as a nice little tiptoe into this whole world. There's going to be twists and turns. There's going to be some humor. There's going to be action. There's going to be, super soldiers, murder robots, and, as I said, cyborg cats. I just hope people have a good time. Hope people are curious enough that they donate to try and bring this to life. And I'd love to be able to kind of at least finish this full arc and see if people enjoyed the story enough that we can see about taking it even further.
Okay. Nick, did you have any last questions before we wrap this puppy up?
I don't, man. Like, I think Mr. Ortiz here pitched his book accurately, and I think it's great. I'm definitely going to throw some money at this. And not have much, but what I have, I'm going to throw at it because I want to see how this book goes. I love the line work and the focused use of color. It really draws me in. I'm really into that. I'm a huge fan of Walking Dead when it popped out, which was all black and white. It was very noir, even though it's not a noir book. But the focused use of color really draws my eye into it, and I think it's really awesome. There's a lot of Blade Runner elements going on here, especially if I'm using my finger here, cover page. So this third page to your right, if you're looking at this, like that draws me in. That's very interesting to me, where she's looking out the window.
Yeah, I mean, JR, if you want to pull up that page by itself, it's one of the ones that we have excerpted on the.
Nope.
Well, that's the alt cover. So if you need your fun
alt cover is
beach-tastic,
actually cool too, because who doesn't love boobs?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that one right there. Stay there. So that's the page for me that really drew me in. Where I was like, yeah, I'm going to give Michael my money.
Yeah. So if you zoom in, actually, we tried to do a lot of visual storytelling with this page as well. Again, you talked about the cyberization and her arms and the augments and that sort of thing. But if you keep even zooming in more, so like for example, the big pink billboard in front of her is for basically a mobile game called Kitty Rancher, which pops up throughout the comic and leads to some contention between people. On the left there, Taste the Rush. That's a Power Thirst, which is an energy drink. That's what Gally is addicted to.
Is that like Surge? Because that was giving me Surge vibes.
Yeah, it's meant to be
Surge.
Even when we were discussing like, what colors to put in, I was like, no, anytime that's soda or whatever, anytime you see the liquid, it needs to be like Surge green.
Like the drink was disgusting. The commercials were on fire. And Nick's got the little noir feature up there with the cigarette.
Absolutely.
And the little air car on the top right. I'm digging. The little details are where you sell me, because like you could have just faded to black and not put anything there, but you threw the air car there and it just kind of adds.
Well, the space needs to look as lived as possible. It needs to feel like I feel as though, and again, maybe this is just me, one of the things I absolutely adore about was it 95 or 96 Ghost in the Shell is how much that movie shows just the city.
the empty bottles on the bottom right.
Yep.
And that adds to it too, that lived in feel. It's
like,
not
again,
clean.
If we have a big wide page like this, it needs to be something where a reader can take a moment and look around and gather cues.
She's working on her arm, so she has to do maintenance onto her own appendages. She has energy drinks in the corner. She has trash on the floor. Like, it's not clean. It's not like a lot of futuristic type scenarios. It shows a clean world. It's not, I have a artificial attachment of an arm, and they usually just leave it attached. It's like she's working on some like forearm gadgets, so her hands work properly. Like you can tell that in that page.
I mean, the classic description of Cyberpunk is high tech, low life.
Yeah,
like that's its classic description. And again, channeling a lot of inspiration from the 80s, we wanted to keep that true. Obviously I'm a big fan of Gibson and a lot of his books, and he's considered for many to be like the father of cyberpunk, and those worlds are not clean. They are dirty, they are dingy, they are used and lived in, and and meshing that pristine high tech sort of, we'll call it 2010s sci-fi with classic 80s gritty, dirty sci-fi is a fun amalgam that we get to play with. And it's a cool way that we can kind of show social strata as well.
Right. And you nailed it with this page. Like, if I didn't see any other page from the comic, the cover, all the flash and whatever that tries to draw you in, if I saw this page, that would have been enough for me to donate and draw in to where I want to know more, because it has a certain gravitas to it, and it has a certain lived-in feel to it.
And JR, if you want, you can mute the video and pull it back up and go to like the end of it. There's more pages in there as well. if people just want to see the.
Babylon, a shining oasis of innovation amidst the barren expanse of the Western Reach. The crown jewel of commerce, it stands as a testament to the power of the Omnicore. A sprawling labyrinth.
Yeah, it won't let me.
It won't let you mute it, really.
Not while I'm playing it.
Will let you pause it.
Nope. I can stop it or go once it's going.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I guess we could do it in post, but like you don't even need
fine.
that. Like this page alone is what draws you into. So if you sold it as like, hey, if you're into Blade Runner and Johnny Mnemonic, Matrix, like that's enough. Those are enough key points to draw you into this story, and like you have to. Like it's really cool. It's gritty and it's lived in and it's futuristic and it's just like it's a normalization of like futuristic society of what we think future should be, but it's really not going to be like that because there's going to be like some stains, there's going to be some rust, there's going to be some like a little stuff on the bolts there, and I think it nailed it. And that, like it really draws me in. It's really interesting, and then like the artist use of positive and negative space really draws you in, especially with that accent of color, which you really utilized here, which I think really is what draws everybody in when they watch this, if they're watching it on YouTube or any other things that show the video part when they're seeing this stuff. Like you have a lot of juxtaposition going here. You have a lot of contrast going here. That's really interesting to the eye. And if you don't buy into that, like we're not even seeing captions or thought balloons in this image, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
Okay.
Because I want to know what's going on.
Well, I want to get this out in time so people can start backing it. So, closing thoughts.
I'll stop talking.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Just with time zone this late for me.
You called
it. Closing thoughts, Ortiz?
I mean, as I said, just kind of, I just want people to have a good time, want people to jump in. Just really hoping we can kind of kickstart this in terms of, not just getting the issue printed, but just kind of just getting the comic rolling, ideally kind of kickstarting the machine, so to speak. So yeah, just if it looks cool to you, spend a few schmeckles and send it our way to try and get it going.
Throw some coin at your Witcher.
We're not trying to become rich here. We're just trying to have a good time and tell fun stories for people.
And Jared, zoom in a little bit more on her back for me. It's not a sexual thing, dick. No.
What?
Over to the right a little bit. I just want to see the cross hatching.
What? As far as I can go.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to appreciate the cross hatching. No, you zoom. What are you doing?
I have limited controls of this while it's on the StreamYards.
Yeah, I'm going to call you out on it though.
No, I'm serious. I can't zoom left or right or it'll glitch. I've tried.
Oh my god. Oh, so bad.
Trust me, I wish we could do more because there are other things that we would, when we go over covers, that I would like.
It's pushed. If you weren't the
Don't
host,
blame me by StreamYards. Write your IT professionals.
If you weren't the host, I'd fire you.
You know what? I was going to give you a pay raise, but you know what? Now I'm going to dock your pay by 50%.
No, for the shit talking, I'll take the pay cut for the shit talking.
All right,
I'm staying on principle right now.
All right, so with that, go check it out. The link's in the show notes. Give it a go. If you did comics, if you did post-apoc, if you got someone in your life that does, back this bad boy. If you don't read it, send it to a friend, donate it to the library, whatever you got to do, but spread the word, help indie creators do their indie thing. Is this going to come out digitally as well?
Yes. So we have a physical tier and we have a digital tier as well.
Oh, freaking standing. And with that, Ortiz, how can listeners and viewers find you on the Wild interwebs?
So yeah, you can find us at Instagram or Facebook at Dawnward Universe. We also have dawnwarduniverse.com, which is the Universe website. Yeah, those would probably be the best ways. There's a few books on Amazon right now, if anyone is super, super interested. They are set in the same world. They're not going to be quite this, call it cyberpunk noir. There'll be a little more traditional post-apoc. But yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can just kind of start seeing some more stuff, figuring things out, seeing if you kind of want to dig more into this rabbit hole. We also have a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel where we started posting some of our short films that we've done over the years. So, and that is also Dawnward Universe.
And there's some good. That's actually how I first found them, dear listener. And there's another YouTube video that we did, an interview of him and Glennie, one of your co-creators, about just the Dawnward Universe writ large. So that would be a good one if people want to check it out. That's on our channel as well. And is there anywhere else people can find you?
Not that's coming to mind.
Okay. And if you want to support the show, dear listener, dear viewers at home, you can go to the link in the show notes for buymeacoffee.com and be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast. That will help. Or you can buy some of that coffee brand coffee. Code podcast grunts, get you 10% off. We get a little bit of kickback. It is a win-win. And then the most important part of every closing episode, because I'm way out of order, man, that 20 ounces of coffee is kicking in something fierce, is to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. They really do matter. And I have it on good authority. You can leave reviews over there on the Kickstarter. I don't know if they will happen in time for this one, but for future sales. Once they're out, the Kickstarter closes. If someone watches this episode next year, for whatever reason, will they be able to buy it from the Kickstarter website, or will they go to the Dawnward Universe website?
So we haven't figured out the future in terms of purchasing yet, but again, worst case scenario, we'll probably have it on the Dawnward website.
All right. And you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters, Spotify, Discord. That's new people. Give it a go. We have our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. And if you are one of those weird people sending me hate mail about the flat earth joke from the Emily Tanner episode, Stabby would love to converse with you and tell you why you were wrong about all of this. So give her the message. And Nick has given us his firm word as a former Ranger, and they would never lie to you, that if you do, he will film a video of him reacting to your content and mocking you relentlessly. So do your part, people. Join the conversation.
Really. Oh my God, these are things that are, these are my favorite things.
All right. And again, you can support the show at the buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley, or by buying Coffee Brand Coffee. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am the overly caffeinated J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we are out. Wait for it. Don't cuss yet, Nick.